Hey there, Ddraig back with an intriguing question. Which overhaul is best for you? In this video, I'm going over 4 of the major overhaul mods in the Steam Workshop, namely Boyz by Catep, Yucky's Overhaul by Yucky Spade, Radious from Team Radious, and lastly SFO Grimhammer 2 by Radious and his steel team. This was based off an idea from Gick, who commentated on a video, so cheers for that. Really got me thinking. So I'm going to take you through what each mod does in relatively simple terms. I've already done a detailed overview of all the mods mentioned. Links will appear at the appropriate times, or check out the highlighted comments and description for more links. One of the reasons I'm making this video is to make people more aware of the different overhauls available and the changes they bring. I've also created a Steam Workshop correction for each of the mods mentioned, which will be linked again in the description and the highlighted comment. So I'm breaking this video down into various sections. First one, main features. This will cover what was advertised by the modder. 2. Campaign. How does the mod affect the game, and how does it change from my own personal experiences? Battles. Again, how the battles are changed through this mod, and this usually provides the biggest changes. And again, it will be highlight some of my own experiences as well. Then we go for some new units. This basically covers, does the mod create any more new units to play with, and roughly how many they have. 5. Unit comparison. This is the largest section, and I'm going to compare 2 units of each type over all overhauls from various factions. 6 is about compatibility. Has the overhaul got many submods being created by other modders or by the modder himself to support other types of units which other people have created? Just in general, is it quite compatible with other small mods? 7. Updated. Lastly, when is the mod being updated and uploaded to the Steam Workshop after the latest DLC release? Now, I've only based this on the Hunter and the Beast DLC, which is the most recent one at the time of recording. But in general, these mods overhauls obviously take a lot of time to complete, and obviously even more time to update to the latest various things that CA do to them. So I thought I'd best put it in just for the sake of completion. For that being said, let's get into the video. So get your preferred beverage, maybe a Bugman's brew, and let's begin. Main features. Starting off, Boyz by Catep. This mod started out in 2016 on the first Warhammer game. As you can see from the information on screen, Catep is trying to bring it closer to the tabletop version as he can, with hundreds of unique abilities and magical changes. And overall mainly focused on the battle side than the campaign, but does provide a unit cap balance, useful to prevent AI spamming. A good overall if you're a fan of the tabletop rules or just want a different take on the battles. Yucky's Overhaul by Yucky Spade started off in 2017 on Warhammer 1. This overhaul brings changes to the campaign and battles. It is mainly focused on the inf of battles and complete balance changes. Magic is fully overhauled, with the magic behaving completely differently than the vanilla experience, including different types of spells doing different type of abilities. Campaign brings unit caps, new building chains, and an in-depth garrison overhaul. A fully changed legendary Yord's skill tree as well as the standard Yord's to make them more unique. Also, Yucky is gradually going over every faction and changing and adding new units as needed, also covering the tech trees and other various mechanics. Currently, at the time of recording, he is on Greenskins and Empire. Radious by Team Radious has been part of the Total War scene for a long time, and the Warhammer 2 overhaul is a classic Radious. Hundreds of units across the factions, completely adding new unit variety to every faction. Huge, and I mean huge battles, with 2 stacks per faction, very common. On the campaign, changes to different factions, economy, battle rebalance. As you can see, Radius changes every part of the game. Lastly, SFO Grimhammer 2 by Radious. Not a lot of information on my graphic from Steam Workshop, but only that make you think it's a small mod. SFO is a large overhaul of every aspect of the game, from changes to the units, making them more unique, such as the elite troops or even more elite, but have smaller unit sizes, tons of small abilities and tweaks to the units, magic, as all the mods have been changed to make it more impactful and having more of it. Campaign has various changes from faction-wide unit units, tweaks to building trees, skill trees, and more options to the ords. This overhaul is also going through the factions and getting the true SFO treatment. Bretonnia, Chaos, Beastmen I've already done at the time of this video being recorded. So that was a brief overview of the various overhauls. So let's go into each one in slightly more depth, and I can add my own personal experiences as well. So on the campaign, Boyz will be Boyz, I haven't seen that many changes. There is a unit cap which does help with the AI spamming units. Creating armies is more of a challenge though, as you have to think about what units you want and who you're fighting as a more nuance on this mod. Especially heroes, I find provide a more interesting role. They are cheaper so you can bring more of them. I often ran with a couple of heroes in each army, and it adds some more really interesting depth on what choices you make on the skill trees. When it comes to Yuki's overhaul, I haven't had as much experience of this overhaul as the others, but the campaign I found pretty tough. In this mod there are extensive changes to a couple of races, and really gives you a good idea of Yuki's vision. Also, one of the highlights for me was time and effort that went into the unique skill trees. Each one of the legendary ords have had complete skill tree changes and makes it a really interesting playthrough, as you can tailor each ord to your own needs with really unique traits, allowing you even more replayability. Other changes I noticed were garrisons. Depending on what you build, will change what units are put into the garrison. A really nice choice, giving you a bit more control of what the garrison has and how you can develop it. With the added bonus of Yuki changing the factions and how they work, it makes for really interesting campaigns. Radious campaigns are about mass battles and getting a balanced fight in your armies. You'll be running a lot of different armies, and each turn will bring possibilities of a lot of battles, making Radious great if you want to busy manage your troops, especially due to the amount of units around. Making careful choices for what will mix well is essential for winning the actual battles. Cash was never a real problem in any campaign, as Radious you usually get a lot of money to run a lot of armies. Also, the upkeep for each unit is reduced severely from vanilla. And don't think you'll be the only one building mass armies. The AI will have a lot as well. So you've got a lot to manage, and of course you also got the provinces to manage as well. It's definitely a campaign you won't be end turn spamming, as each turn can take a while, especially in the 8 game. SFO campaigns have various part pumps, which allow you to tailor the mod to your taste. If you don't like unit caps, there is an option early on to remove them completely, or choose a few different options depending how you want to play. Also, you can have Beastmen Rising. This spawns even more Beastmen armies during the campaign. You can turn this off and on. Money is key in SFO, so you have to be quite careful managing your elite armies, which have high tier units, say the Wood Owls or the High Owls. A lot of units cost a lot more, so you won't have as many armies. Saying that though, the factions that are supposed to have numbers, such as the Undead and the Skaven, can have multiple armies from the start. SFO is quite hard, as you really have to look after your units and keep them healthy, especially the early elite units, as it can be a while to get enough funds or buildings to get that unit again. There is tweaks and skill trees with new choices, and especially the factions which had the SFO personal touch, which again at the time of the recording was Chaos, Greenskins, Bretonnia and Beastmen. Each of these have been expanded on extensively with new units, new mechanics. Battles is where the biggest changes will appear for overhauls. Again, these are my own experiences and obviously in brief form. If you want a more detailed analysis of each particular overhaul, feel free to look at my playlists, which are again in the description and the highlighted comment. So let's start off with Boyz with Boyz. The battles were the focus of this mod, and you can clearly see the tabletop influences, as there are a lot of unique abilities. I would also say the battles last a bit longer than the vanilla experience. I especially saw a difference with Artillery, who can just eat yard units with ease. I think you definitely see a more defined role for each unit. Putting an anti-yard unit on the right foe really can make a difference, and they can break them quicker. There's a definite focus to have the right units against the right character, who use that bonus they provide, and they can use it a lot quicker if they go against a more suited unit. As an example, you put a high DPS, low AP unit against its perfect foe, then they will disappear and break before you know it, so careful planning and placement is essential. With some interesting horde units put into the mix as well, some factions have an extra unit, which is expensive but has a lot more models, adding to a more of a tar pit army, say for a Skaven. Interesting change, and they also provide extra buffs as well depending on the faction. As mentioned, the heroes I felt are more important in the battles, because you can run with more of them, which gives you more options. Having one to help the front line and use Yord as a more offensive option, or have numerous heroes across your front line and just have your particular Yord right at the back protected. There are lots of different combat choices around the hero units. When it comes to Yuki's overhaul on the battle, I would say this provides the biggest changes, maybe because the stats and especially the health and damage are completely different and take some getting used to. When you get used to these balance changes, you can see what Yuki's trying to do, and out of the 4 mods, these battles last the longest, and are more satisfying when it really works. Battles I found tough but made sense. Actually, in general, I think all mods I've mentioned here add more difficulty to the game. Like Boyz with Boyz, unit choice was key. The expanded rosters add some more units as well. The magic was one of the highlights for me, as it was completely reworked with spells you're familiar with, having different uses and completely different abilities. Some of these take a lot of rings of magic, but they can turn the battle. But if you do use these abilities, they may neuter your use of magic for the rest of the battle as they're so powerful. Naturally, when it comes to combat and Radious, you think units. And of course, this is one of the main new reasons people use this mod. The unit variety is quite daunting to say the least, leaving you on the recruitment screen carefully picking out a 20 unit army for a long time. Then you have to get them on the field, and usually have to balance them with your second army. On the battlefield itself, with so many units to juggle, it can be quite overwhelming, even with liberal use of the pause. It can be quite easy to use track. Again, you have to take in consideration what units are where with your army against which faction. And of course, when it comes to the opposites of the faction, they have tons of new options you need to get your head around. You do spend a lot of time looking at opposition units, trying to match your best units, and then finding out you haven't catered for the new units you've never even seen before. It is an interesting fun challenge, and if you have grand scale battles, Radious will definitely scratch that itch. SFO is an interesting overhaul. Everything is kind of ramped up, and you can see that when I go into individual units later. The battles may be a bit younger than era, and the lines can hold a lot longer as if they're designed to, so just like the dwarves would. So know your faction strengths in vanilla, and then they ramp it up in an SFO. Skaven have tons of units, and specialise in Swarm, but their infantry is weak. Wood Elves are incredibly fast and hard hitting, but getting them to combat, and they can quite easily melt quickly due to their class, cannon lifestyle. A lot of unit abilities are added to this mod, and are based around Euro and tabletop. So knowing your units in detail really helps, and with your mod accounts for units means keeping them to the end of the fight, as they are very expensive. Magic wise, you get a lot of magic, and again all magic costs are changed to complement this, so just double check each spell before you cast it. SFO also adds a fair few new units for various factions, and they have been updated to Yedri units. These Yedri units are very powerful and should be carefully used in the battle, as they can really change the course completely. So does the mod at base level bring any new units to the game? Firstly, Boyz will be Boyz. On a quick small note, you will need the unit pack to get these units. These have some changes to the Empire roster and Chaos, but also they're mainly regiment or horde units. Take your standard swordsman for the Empire, and you can also take regiment of these instead at an extra cost, with some new abilities. Similar to the Skaven, where they can take hordes of various units, A lot of factions have given these options, so roughly 25 to 50 new units to play with, but these are mainly like the ones mentioned. Riky has started to freshening out a couple of different factions, namely Empire and Greenskins. Both have new units put in. Both have new your-friendly units for you to command and develop your armies. There's around 20 in total, but Riky has plans to develop more factions as he goes. As for Radious, well, yes, there are units. Roughly, and this is very roughly, over 300. So yeah, if you have a mod with new units, you can't go wrong with Radious. SFO has more unique units like legendary or new units for factions which has been overhauled. These are added to some rosters to expand certain factions such as Chaos, which add a few new units around the Chaos gods. Not huge changes to the rosters, just extra options for you to consider, each with their own unique different traits. Again, roughly 25 to 50 units, but these are much more unique. And now we're on to unit comparison. This is the biggest section, and I'm sure the most interesting section for most people. Battles is where we get into the large differences between the units, and how each overhaul's vision for the game comes over in the core of the game, the battles. So after a lot of thinking, I've decided to cover about 30 units, which are all vanilla, and are free available to anybody who has a particular DLC, or just got the basic game. Any of the new units that any overhaul has been created, I'm not going to compare for obvious reasons. Yes, that is a lot, and I have picked out 2 of each main type of units, such as missile, heavy cavalry, skirmish cavalry, etc. Each section I shall put on the screen the unit card from vanilla, nice and large on the left as normal, and then the corresponding unit from each of the 4 overhauls all labelled out. Feel free to pause the video so you can have a look at the screen, as there's a lot to take in, and I'll briefly go over some big changes. A couple of notes before we start. On Radious, the changes are more subtle because of the amount of units Radious creates, so that's why there are not as many big changes. Also, Riky's mod, the main factor is the health of the unit. It is massively different to all other mods, and of course vanilla settings, so I will mention that. Safe to say it is Riky's vision, and that's how he feels the battle should be run. All the units which are going to follow are on ultra settings, as the modders prefer this when running their mods, and how the mods are balanced. A quick note, some of the unit cards here are a few months old from the time of releasing the video, so maybe a small tweaks. I have checked a few and found no changes, but modders will always tweak. Okay, refresh your beverage and let's get into this. First up, meat shields, everyone's favourite, the Skaven Slaves. First thing you may notice is the unit size. We have various sizes for vanilla and radius of 180 to 280 from SFO. In Europe, the Skavens are a swarm, a horde, and some of the overhauls go with more entities to get that across. Interestingly, Riky's version is the weakest version of the slaves, terrible stats across the board, while Boyz has them being very cowardly at 25 leadership, but can hit the hardest as a comparison, and have the best stats to all the others shown here. Always remember this is just to show how different overhauls go about their units. I just want to show how each mod goes about doing this, as I find it really interesting. During this comparison, I'll also look at the unique abilities, if there is any. So with Riky, he has a unique ability on his Skaven Slaves. An ability you activate, it will regenerate some Skaven. It's an interesting little mechanic, but can only be used if they're not in melee or routing. So when they're on the way back to the fight, you can just regenerate a few more before throwing them back in to be killed. Or maybe a bit win, but more likely be killed. So my other choice for meat shield is one of the worst people to be in Warhammer, the Bretonnian Peasants. Again, the model count is different, with the max being 220 from SFO, and the units themselves have some interesting changes. Whereas Riky's Peasants are the worst fighting units, and both SFO and Boyz have them hitting quite hard with 26 strength. If they ever hit anything, let's face it. Leadership is pretty even, range from 35 to 40, so not deviating away from vanilla settings too much. But Radious has given the peasants 25 worth of armour, so making them slightly more durable. SFO has given this unit the Peasant's Duty, a small buff when leadership is high, but nothing massive. plus 5 on melee attack, and it's quite handy, pushing them to 18, and their physical resistance. Might not seem much, but that is with 220 models. The Rock of the Isman now, the Source. Let's see how these stack up across the mods. So apart from SFO, where the model count is 80, all the other mods keep with this 100 model count. Also they are slow units at around 31 speed. Armor wise, they're all similar again. SFO only is only at 43. Notice they have various wards, physical, magical and missile resistance. This is a quite familiar thing across all SFO units. I'm not going to mention all of them because pretty much every single unit has some sort of physical, magical resistance depending what they are. But the icon's there so you can see. Also, I want to point out the blue icon on the Yuki Source. You see this now and again on Yuki's mod. This denotes that this unit is limited in campaign and needs buildings to expand the amount you can take. Other mods do something similar, but Yuki changes the colour to represent that. Also, back to the unit, Yuki Source have silver shields making them really tough. Leadership is similar, but Radious has a massive 51 defense on their Source, making them the toughest here. Our Boyz Source hit very hard but have weak melee skills. Special abilities, there are a fair few to talk about. The Overhauls have their own view on how a rampage mechanic works. Riky has got rid of the rampage part completely and has cold-blooded, which is a constant debuff, making the unit slower off the mark but immune to psychology. While Riky also adds Predator Fighter, showing the animal instinct of the Isman, seriously buffing damage considerably if they are winning combat. Boyz keeps the rampage in but takes a while to start, and after 40 seconds of winning combat their natural instincts will kick back in. They also have cold-blooded, adding more leadership when they start dipping to keep them in the fight, and can recover from morale shock. Lastly, SFO has their own version. When the Source are under pressure, the survival instincts kick in and try to destroy the nearest units. Increasing stats but low in the defense, making them vulnerable. Lastly, Spawning Vigor. Spawning Vigor. For SFO adds a constant buff to Vigor, making Source long lasting when it comes to fighting. The ever sturdy Dwarf Warriors now, rocks of the mountain, never giving an inch. 100 models across the board, here all with high armour, but silver shield for SFO and Yuki. Surprisingly how weak at melee attack the dwarves are in vanilla, which clearly the modders disagree with, and it boosts into close to 30 across the other overhauls. Weapon strength is similar, and of course, dwarves are slow. The other big change is again Radious with that high melee defense. Most of the overhauls are pretty similar from the dwarves. Abilities, SFO has an extra and yielding Oath ability, adding some toughness to the dwarves, and nice +5 melee defense as long as they're in the fight and healthy. Dwarves are tough enough as they is, but so this buff is not on a yacht. Boyz have two abilities. Shield Wall, showing off the dwarves' ability to lock together when standing, stopping a charge in its tracks. Relentless, dwarves, as we all know, are not natural sprinters, but always in their fight. The Witch Elves now from the Dark Elves. The glass cannons of this particular faction have still got low armour across the board. There are a few differences when it comes to model count though. For vanilla of 100, where SFO and Yuki both have them at 80, and Boyz at 90. Speaking of Boyz, they have poison on the daggers instead of the usual mark of Cain, which is an interesting change, and no anti-infantry buff either. Speed is also quite different, with this unit being pretty slow for the Boyz overhaul, while the others are a lot quicker, hitting 50 in SFO, making them a really good flank attacker. Speaking of SFO, they are real combat monsters with huge charge and a melee attack, but to emphasise the glass cannon hike, their defense is really low at 26, making them seriously squishy, especially with that low armour. Weapon strength is pretty high, with Yuki being the hardest hitters this time. Unique abilities, Frenzy, which is on the unit, is different compared to which overhaul you use. Of course, you've got Murderous Mastery, and here are the vanilla settings for quick reference. Boyz has Frenzy, that's quite a complicated mechanic, making the unit rampage when they get low on leadership, but have buffs to melee stats. Still on after 20 seconds, but rampage stops, but damage is still there. Murderous Mastery is simple damage buff, which is a constant, and then when the Elven always strikes first, boosting their melee attack. Lucky changes for Frenzy are small, but are noted here for
Reference: Murder Mastery is a completely different beast with huge damage buffs across the board, so be very wary of that. SFO has large changes again for Murder's Mastery, but note the mirrored defense drops, making this unit in particular very weak in combat. It's basically kill or be killed. They also have no mercy when winning a battle, which is a very apt thing for the Dark Elves. Again, they have a small change when it comes to Frenzy. Onto the Warriors of Chaos, with another hard-hitting unit, Forsaken. Interestingly, all the mods here seem to agree with vanilla settings. That is to say, hard-hitting but very weak in defense, and have to rely on some decent armour to survive. Leadership is quite different though, with Riky giving the unit 80 down to 68 for Boyz. Remember, all of the stats are without Frenzy, so add more upgrades to all shown here. Interesting for Riky, these hit really hard and are on another route, making them only 30 models. Apart from Frenzy, Boyz Overhaul has added 2 other abilities. Freakish Mutations, giving it intermittent debuff, which can be very useful and very tactful on the battlefield, especially adding 60 seconds to recharge rates. Also giving them Twisted Regeneration and giving the unit poison on the target, an interesting little mechanic and quite a big change from the vanilla settings. SFO has added another ability, Chaotic Crusade, which is on a lot of their Chaos units, adding more damage to their abilities, and they still get a Frenzy. Vulnerable High Elves are with the elite unit of Phoenix Guard. Let's see how this unit compares. With the more elite units you see more differences, and with SFO only bringing 60 models of this elite unit, while the others are around 100 mark and Riky coming in at 80. SFO likes to drop the model count for elite units in general, always making them better stats per model, as you can see. SFO has really high damage on its stats. Radious again with a high defense of 49 and fire imbued strikes make him an affordable unit. Riky however increases the armour and makes the level quite balanced, making the melee attack and defense the same. Special units abilities. First with Boyz, a high ward save of 50%. The martial powers of High Elves is only slightly different from vanilla, and they always strike first mechanic, boosting a melee attack by 5 when winning the battle. A very good buff which lasts 40 seconds. Riky has his own version of Martial Mastery, with melee defense and melee attack boosts taking both stats over 50, making them a really high tier unit in Riky's Overhaul. Where SFO has 4 abilities to talk about. Martial Master again, boosting their base stats considerably. Awe of Dread, giving the unit a constant hex around them, especially good when bringing down those large foes. With this particular ability, boosting their leadership and defense when using, it's a rare ability in Warhammer that actually makes breaking this unit very difficult. The Artery, as a Phoenix Guard or the elite of elites, they make the areas around them better, securing defense and meaning they are great at holding the front line. The first unit from the Vampire Coast with a Depth Guard. A small unit no matter which overhaul you choose, with SFO again being the smallest, and interestingly Radious adds more models than vanilla settings. While most of the overhauls agree with the old defense, Radious has gone for much more elite and more balanced stats, and adding an anti-infantry bonus, which can also be seen on SFO. Speed is interesting here, where Boyz Overhaul and SFO made the unit quicker, but the rest keep the vanilla speed settings of 36. Where Riky has quickly embraced the lack of defense, with a very low 22, so get ready to back this unit up. Only 2 overhauls add any unique abilities. Riky adds the first, which is one of healing, where SFO adds an explosion, being a very small unit that can really help with Depth Guard when they get surrounded by that horde, and quite adaptability as well for the Vampire Coast. A familiar unit is All Empire, the classic handgunners. As you can see, not a whole lot has changed here, but there are a few interesting differences. The armour is quite high on SFO compared to the rest, and also has the highest range at 165. And while we're on SFO, they also have a shield breaker on these range shots. And as a melee unit, it's not awful compared to the basic stats of the other mods. Other interesting notes are the ammo count, with really low 15 for Riky, but having good accuracy and damage per shot. While Radious has a ton of ammo, and another point that Riky and SFO have both added 10 models to this unit. Abilities wise, only the SFO adding the Imperial Alliance, which is another ability shared by the other Empire units, giving a bit more leadership and defence. Another gun line unit, this time from the Dwarves, with the Thunderers. Again, small changes, but this time with Radious has made the unit much more tougher in combat compared to the others, but one of the lowest missile damages. And interestingly, across the board, no model change for this unit. All the overhauls matching the better fighters of the Dwarves. And SFO adding Shieldbreaker again to the ranged attacks, but they also add Silver Shields for the unit. Special abilities, SFO has the same Unyielding Oath, which I've shown before, and Boyz has the same rules as the Dwarf Warriors, Shield Wall and Relentless. But they also add one more ability, bringing more range and accuracy due to the masterwork of the Dwarven Engineers. The Great Skirmishers of Isman, the Chameleon Skinks. Some really interesting takes on this unit. Across the board, they keep their speed, but have noticeably more armour and radius. The actual melee stats are improved in most overhauls, apart from Boyz, but they have one of the highest damages per model. They all possess poison, apart from the Boyz overhaul, which drops it on the melee attack, and those only have a small range at only 65, compared to the huge 140 for Riky's mod, which also possess a truly obscene amount of ammo at 40. When it comes to abilities, the Boyz overhaul has gone with 2 unique shots depending on how you want to use them. Against more horde, so you can switch to multiple shots, or a standard shot for more accuracy against tightly packed units. Also possess a skirmisher buff, making them extra tough to break in the natural habitat of the forests. Riky still has the same ability from the Saurus as in Cold Blooded, where SFO has a very interesting mechanic. It's called Calm Presence. In lore, the skinks were used to control the Saurus and Croxicores around them, as they were prone to charging. SFO brings this ability to allowing a skink and Saurus healthy mix in your army to take advantages of controlling those rampages. Now off to check out the Way Watchers or the Wood Elves, likely the best skirmishing units in the game. The first thing that strikes me is a varied body count, with 40 on Riky's overhaul to 80 on Radious. The combat in melee is much improved over vanilla settings, as in across all the mods they are very handy in combat, with a special nod to the SFO version, which is highly effective in combat, and as well they bring poison. When it comes to the range weaponry, Riky has a huge 210 range with a silly weapon damage, making them deadly snipers. With a sniped ability on a Boyz overhaul, which actually negates 100% of the shield factor. Truly expert shots. With 50 shots coming with Riky's mod, as well, meaning this unit is feared no matter what overhaul you play, and possibly the most different of any units we have looked at. And that's before we get to the unit's abilities. Boyz overhaul has the different shots again, taking away the sniped ability for more sustained volley fire. Speaking of volley, this unit has an advantage on damage when standing still, which is a stat you will find on many archers in the overhaul. Also add their always strike first ability, being their elves. Adding some very unique abilities to this unit. Where SFO has some more abilities. Gift of the Forest adds damage, speed and relay buffs constantly. Also the Hawkish Finesse, with a very quick reload skill, making these watchers shower the enemy in lethal shots. Back to a Dark House now, with the skirmishers of the Dark Riders with crossbows. Haven't got huge changes with this unit, they're all still quick, but Riky's overhaul comes with really high armour values. There is some melee buffs for all overhauls compared to the vanilla settings, but it's nothing major. Mainly here we can just see the small tweaks that the various overhauls have used to balance their mod. However, there is noticeable damage increase on the missile damage from SFO and Riky, but surprisingly no AP damage on the Boyz overhaul. Back to the Empire with the Pistoliers, a great little skirmish cav. Quite a varied for a simple unit. Damage on the missiles goes from 38 to 52 in SFO, and only Radious doesn't have the armour piercing damage like vanilla. With a younger range from Riky, and the largest amount of shots, and interestingly, that Riky and the Boyz overhauls both have the unit as good AP, where the rest don't, even though both these mods consider them low accuracy. Another thing of note, that in SFO you're not bad in combat and can easily charge down some lower tier missile units, like take on artillery units, but of course they'll take some damage in return. Speaking of taking damage, interestingly, that Boyz and the Boyz Overhaul has 60 armour for this Yo tier skirmish unit, making them a bit more durable. Only extra ability is a standard buff for the Empire, which I've already mentioned for the handgunners. This of course is an SFO. The great range attack from the Skaven Warbiok Jeziels. Let's see if the overhauls concur. So when it comes to the range attack, interestingly, Boyz and Boyz Overhaul has only got them at 195 range, while others are close to 275 in vanilla settings, and indeed greater, going up to 300. Boyz also has only a bronze shield, and drops a shield break ability, but does provide magical damage on the range attacks, and a 60 Skaven unit compared to 30 mark for the rest of the overhauls. All got similar ammo, and on the whole, most are terrible in fighting, but have decent defense, mainly due to their shields, especially high on Radious at 47. Special abilities wise, only SFO has one, where they can overcharge their weapons at the expense of damaging themselves, but does give a huge damage bonus, very handy for picking up off a hero or yeet units. This warp overcharged appears on a lot of the Skaven warpstone weapons in SFO. One of the other kings of young range sniping, the Shapti Greatbow. Again, ranges are different from the Boyz Overhaul at only 160, but their damage is largest by over 100 compared to the other mods. And in this overhaul, the yacht thrower at 35 compared to the 50s for the rest. Other than that change, on the whole the mods are similar to each other. All overhauls have increased damage on the range attacks. While in combat, their stats are again similar, with small increases to melee attack, and a huge damage in Boyz Overhaul again, with surprisingly high charge bonus as well. For a change, no extra unit abilities for Shapti to talk about. To the High Elves now, with their core cav unit, the Silver Helms. This unit hasn't changed much, apart from some large charge bonuses and weapon strength changes for Yuki's Overhaul, but they only add 40 models. Other than that, they are fast moving cavalry force, with decent armour and reasonably melee stats, with a noticeable increase in melee attack in SFO. When it comes to special abilities, Boyz and Yuki Overhauls have the same buffs as I went over with the Phoenix Guard unit. That is to say, the High Elves bonuses. In SFO, they have one extra ability, Azure Trample. This buffs the units around them, adding some charge and acceleration. Handy when you're using with the cheaper Avarian Weavers, if you're struggling for the cash that is, and just gives those units a nice extra bonus push. Over to the Bretonnians now, with a similar type of unit, the Knights of the Realm. The anti-charge cheap choice is similar across all overhauls. Not the greatest combat stats, but all hit hard on the charge, especially Yuki's version with a monster 100 charge and very high damage. Also having 10 yes models at 50. Again, this unit has not seen many changes across the board, only small tweaks, but a high impact anti-charge threat is where this unit is, with the exception of Boyz Overhaul, which drops this particular value and makes them the weakest on the weapon strengths at 25. I ought to talk about with their special abilities, with various different formations. They all have the classic Gantz formation, but Yuki has gone to the town and added a diamond formation, which adds a speed bonus across the main stats, a flying wedge to increase the charge bonus and extra damage to the large targets. The Ants formation changes the values to bonus versus infantry again, so you can pick your targets to do the most damage. Radious has also added the diamond formation, but making the unit weaker in combat defense, but more potent at attacking, but it does also slow them down. Where SFO has also added the diamond formation, which only slows them down, but making them a bit tougher in combat. Also, they have a Knight's Duty buff, which is seen on a lot of the Knight's units in SFO, adding even more melee attack and charge bonus, only when their leadership is high though. Sticking with Bretonnia, the Grey Knights are the Saints of the Yans. Let's hear how they are on the battlefield. This unit has seen a lot of changes as you can see. Firstly, the number of models with Radius is sticking to 60, and all the others dropping this count, with SFO being the smallest at 26. When you compare melee stats of Inner, all overhauls agree that this unit should be the Yeet or a Yeet, and a very high combat stats. Most have huge defense and a good melee attack, especially on Yuki's Overhaul. Here they have the highest stats of all, and our truly scary 120 charge. Where they all keep the anti-charge theme, with the exception of Boyz Overhaul. One other thing on note, on defence that Radious has given them a really high armour and silver shield, making them very tough in a fight. Special abilities, they all possess the same formations which I've just been over, for respective overhauls. Boyz Overhaul adds the blessing of the Grail, adding damage resistance, immune to psychology, and perfect vigour. Where SFO has added a regen and vigour buff, and the blessing of the AD as well, adding a very high 20% physical resistance. Straight from the vampire counts, the answer to the Grey Knights is the Blood Knights. A stat line that comes close to the magnificent Grey Knights, these vampires have been buffed from vanilla settings. Mostly in melee attack, and interesting magical damage from SFO and Radious. Again they specialise in anti-charge, and again Boyz drops his stat to a flat out AP damage. Riky again winning the one that has the best stats when compared, but with only 30 models, and even yes in SFO at 20. Even Boyz has dropped the United models down to 40. The last thing to point out is the silver shield in SFO, adding some more missile defence as well, for those high armour values. Only one extra ability to talk about this time. We don't have the formation choices of Bretonia, and with Riky bringing Vampiric, which is an interesting ability as it can make vampires free instead of crumbling. It also adds regeneration, but of course that's a huge problem against fire, so use that to your advantage. Let us see how the mods take on the chariot, and with the first one being the classic chariot from the Tomb Kings. Boyz Overhaul has dropped the model count by 4 to 8, and this mod also drops the small anti-infantry bonus, but it gets really hard on the charge, and a good weapon strength as well. Other than Boyz, the other mods have all got the unit as pretty terrible in combat, and definitely a unit to keep on the move as it is in vanilla. Surprising to me that the old charge bonus on Riky's mod compared to the others, even the vanilla settings. One ability to talk about with Boyz is the Bumpy Road debuff, which appears on all chariots, no matter which faction. When going through a forest, this actually does more damage to your unit, which really makes you think of the location and where they are on the battlefield, and even more importantly, how they get to the enemy from that point. So be extra careful, or that extra damage can easily add up. At the other end of the scale, for chariots, is the ferocious Gorebeast chariot. The scary chariot is still keeping its role as a huge impact unit, and even has more models in Radious and Riky's version. In Boyz, the unit is truly terrifying with massive stats, huge weapon strength of 210 and anti-charge bonus matched, with its 100 charge bonus compared to all other versions which have an anti-infantry bonus. It is comparably slow on this mod compared to the others, with exception to the Boyz Overhaul. This unit is pretty bad in sustained combat, so always be aware of that. Abilities wise, Bumpy Road again for the Boyz Overhaul, while Riky has the Warriors of the Dark Gods, which are on the art of his Chaos units, which causes fear and really helps break units that bit quicker. While SFO has Chaotic Blessing, again appearing on most of the Warriors of Chaos, well it's high tier units anyway, adding big damage and vigour increase as well. So let's start going into the monsters of Warhammer, starting with everyone's favourite greenskin unit, the Trolls. For this unit, most holders agree with vanilla stats, low combat abilities but high damage, even though SFO has taken a different tactic. Model count is around the 16 mark in vanilla, except FSO which is at 10, and of course leadership is really low across all the mods. The main difference in combat stats for SFO are better than all the others, and are pretty high armour, but they do use that AP bonus, and apparently in overhauls, Trolls actually have a decent charge. Individual abilities, Riky has added the Stupid trait to enforce how slow and on the uptake Trolls are, just giving the unit a pause before he can move it again. SFO also has a Stupidity trait, but treat it as a buff because they are so stupid to know what they're in trouble. Also, our new way Trolls regen, adding more physical toughness as well. Of course this makes it even tougher units to bring down, but as with all Trolls, breaking their morale is the way to win. Onto the Vampire Counts now, and the highly useful Crypt Horrors. With this unit, there are a few subtle differences. Much like with Trolls, the mana count is similar across the board except with 10 models in SFO. Poison is present in all versions, but there is a large damage boost across all overhauls, with SFO topping at 140. Now this is also the fastest of the units, making it even more effective at flanking. Yuki's Crypt Towers are some of the weakest units I have seen in defence. That includes peasants, and it's clearly a true grass cannon, but we do hit very hard. Only one extra ability, this time for Yuki, who makes the unit free instead of crumble, but does make them immune to psychology, and give them an extra bit of toughness. Our true monster of the battlefield now, the Necrosphinx. Keeping to the true vanilla settings, this is a true anti-arch damage dealer with various small tweaks across the overhauls. All with good damage, but yes with the Boyz mod. And the actual combat stats are not as good as the others. The obvious note to make is the standout damage on the Yuki's mod. But remember, this is balanced to the much larger health pool of that particular overhaul. Radious version is arguably the best of the bunch, with really good defense, but still on a high impact and melee attack. Only one special ability from Boyz, which is a special attack which adds a chance to delete a humanoid or cavalry unit. A very interesting ability, and has a base defense debuff as well, so it's particularly well suited to go against cavalry of the Warhammer world. To the Vampire Coast now, and the amazing model that is a Necrosphinx Colossus. While I've been looking over these overhauls, you can see the various patterns. For this monster, we see one overhaul going completely against the original idea that CA came up with. Before that though, what I noticed is how SFO is so similar to the original version, with very little changes. Radious, however, adds a bit of combat stats, but again mainly sticks with the same values. Yuki ramps up the damage in both physical and range damage, but also adds an anti-arch and shield breaker to its much improved range of its cannon. Now Boyz overhaul has flipped how this unit works. It is now close quarters only. Pretty much think of a shotgun cannon. With a limited range of 130, huge damage for this mod, and massive charge bonus, with magical attacks on its melee weapons. A complete change to the original range killer that the vanilla settings always had. But it also has very little health, but when this unit works, it is truly devastating in close quarters. With no special abilities to talk about, except for the usual vanilla ones, so let's move on to the next unit. The Classic Steam Tank, leading the charge for the Empire. So the stats are interesting, as in most cases it hits a fair bit harder than a vanilla, with the exception of Radious, which has a slightly decreased in damage. Whereas the anti-arch bonus on both Yuki's and SFO version, and of course extra damage on Yuki's version to balance his overhaul, where SFO has boosted its longest range. Surprising though, a very weak charge on Yuki's version, and a very little ammo, so be aware of that, and that melee defense of 10, making it best at the back of your army. This however is not an option for Boyz overhaul, as again they flip the unit into a close combat unit, again with the same type of shotgun cannon theme. At only 130 range, you need to put this unit in risk of getting caught, but to make the most out of it. When it comes to the unit abilities, Boyz has some interesting and scary debuffs. First let's look at the buff. Full steam ahead adds some much speed, charge and big splash attack, but decreases its range even more, making it even more like a shotgun. But trust me, when you see the carnage it can cause, it's well worth it. Next we have some debuffs for the steam tank itself. As it's not the most stable unit in this overhaul, and as soon as it takes any high damage and drops below 50%, it has serious damage debuffs, and if that's not harsh enough, it can also go kaboom when it drops even lower, so keep an eye on your tank, because it should be used carefully and pick your targets well. In SFO you have two different types of shot. The solid shot, which has a massive 100 anti-charge, or the traditional explosive projectile, which adds more splash damage to the round instead. A wonder of dwarf engineering now, with a great golden gun. It's not a huge amount of changes on this unit overhauls, as they tend to agree with the 300 range, except for the Boyz overhaul, which has dropped it again to 160, making you got to put your artillery in danger of getting caught out. Missile damage is quite varied, with Yuki and SFO having huge damage compared to the rest of the units we have covered. While Radious has decreased the damage quite severely, but the ammo does reduce armour by 25. Other than that, all the melee stats are of course pretty bad. Only abilities we need to talk about is the Boyz overhaul, which adds with a stubborn trait, which can be seen in different factions as well. making it a tough unit to scale off the battlefield. Then the other ability is a classic tabletop rule. Artillery units are known to have a few issues, and if you roll the O, you have a chance to explode. It's shown here, and it's a pretty low chance, but it can be a bit annoying when you check back and see your cannon has just exploded. So you just have to cater for this in your army builds. And another artillery unit helps, and also don't completely rely on these units.
The house size spider. What's not to like about this little fella? If you glance around the various unit cards, you can see there's not too many differences from vanilla settings.
Riky has increased the damage and the range, and BA as per normal, and adds a new poison, which we'll talk about in a minute. SFO and Boyz Overhaul have all put an anti-charge buff, while Riky has gone for an anti-infantry buff. But Radious has taken all of these type of buffs completely off. But it does have superior combat stats to the others, but not by much, and has the lowest range on its missile attacks. Let's have a look at Riky's new poison, which drops physical resistance, making it a very good unit to have a mix, get supported by another unit to add more damage.
And because it's a spider, you can also launch webs. Holding units in place, making it handy, close to the front line, pinning down a unit, which allows you to get more damage off, or to just slow the advance.
Congratulations, you've made it to the Arse unit. And the Arse unit is of course the War Hydra. I want to make a good in-depth unit breakdown to try to show as many unique things about each particular overhaul and the way they cover their units. So hopefully I've succeeded in this. So let's talk about this Dark Elves War Hydra. It's another great model, and on the whole the overhauls agree with the vanilla settings. I own me a defense unit, but has a ton of damage potential, and it's pretty much the same speed over all mods. Damage rise, the traditional high damage from Riky and the very high damage for an SFO unit as well. Interestingly, Radious has added an anti-infantry bonus to their version. I suppose a lot of heads means a lot of infantry can be killed, which kind of makes sense. A fair few unit abilities to talk about. First, the Boyz Overhaul, which has extra damage as long as the unit is above 50%, i.e. all the heads are still alive. While Riky has made small changes on the regeneration ability, as shown here, and adds a value to the tick. It also has another unit ability, which can be activated twice to have even more regen when it drops below 50%. Lastly, SFO adds its own version of regen, which is considerably better than the normal regen. As it says here, there's no monsters that can match it. And that is the last of unit breakdowns. Let's move on to the next section.
In the compatibility section, I'm going to see how many other mods work well with the overhaul. Just add even more flavour to your playthroughs. And a quick reminder, I've also created my own Steam Workshop collections, which has all these overhauls mentioned and with compatible mods, so feel free to check them out later. Boyz with Boyz is pretty compatible with most things. Obviously units will need stat changes to balance them with other units. Being an old mod, you can find a few specific Boyz with Boyz mods to complement Katep's work. Katep himself has created numerous individual factions, such as Southern Realms, which works fully with this mod, giving you a lot more options for campaign playthroughs. Riky's Overhaul is not as popular as the other three in this little trial I'm doing, so there's not as many submods for it. It is growing though, and Riky has actually created his own submods for some of the more popular ones. As with all these mods, have a good look in Steam Workshop, or you'll find your favourite mod and then read the description to see if the overhaul is quite catered for. Radious has been around a long time and has a loyal following and a fair number of submods around for it. With the loyal fanbase adding more mods, a good search on Steam Workshop finds a lot of these. Radious themselves had added a few more, mainly based on their own subscribers' wishes. When it comes to SFO, there are a lot of submods for this overhaul, being one of the most popular on the Steam Workshop. A lot of modders create a compatible version of their own work to work with SFO. Web themselves have created a fair few under their own workshop. And some people, well with a mod, have created a lot of their own mods, so read the description and check out their work. As a general note, the more mods you add, the more chance of issues, so be careful when you add new ones. And lastly, we come to update time. So I was not sure if I should add this, but for the sake of completion, I decided I should. It's not a go at the modders themselves, as they all are given up their own free time on the whole to update their mods. This is never an easy process, and takes a lot of time of their own free time. So I'm basing this on the Hunter and the Beast DLC, and I made a note when the mod was updated. Now some of these modders have access to the beta, and some do not, and some are more complicated than others, especially the ones with more extensive campaign overhauls. So always be patient with modders. They're trying their best, and as soon as they can, they will get that mod out to us. As I've been developing this video over many months, another DLC has dropped, named Shadow and the Braid, which is on the 12th of December 2019. So I add that information in as well. Boyz were Boyz. This mod was released on the same day as the DLC, which is highly impressive by Catep. Query had access to the beta and get his mod ready. On the whole, Catep is very on the ball when it comes to updating his mods. Again, for the Shadow and the Braid DLC, Catep managed to release an update on the day of release. Riky had a lot of trouble updating his mod for the DLC. I'm guessing due to the major Empire update, which Riky just finished his own update, but he managed to get it updated for the 28th of November. The next DLC, Riky was much quicker and managed to push out the first update for the 24th of December. Radious was updated about a week later, which is a very good achievement, allowing fans to get back to the overhaul soon after release. Again, Radious are very on the ball, and the team behind them are always trying to get their updates out very quickly. For Shadow and the Braid DLC, Radious managed to update on the 18th of December, just short of a week from the launch. SFO was released about 3 weeks after the initial launch of the DLC. Due to the complicated nature of SFO, because it changes so much like campaigns, mechanics, and they build their own particular mechanics as well, this mod can take a long time to update. And if you follow Venus on Twitter, you can keep up with how the mod is progressing. And it usually keeps a nice percentage sign, and it can tell and each time it takes them hundreds of hours to update the mod fully. As all these modders, you have to feel for the time they have to put into get their mods back up to date. As the DLCs are happening every three months, give or take, and then sometimes a small update as well. Venus and his team managed to release his update for Shadow and Braid on the 3rd of January 2020. And that brings me to the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and what I hope you've gathered from these different overhauls is that every single one plays completely differently, and hopefully you may find one you haven't played before and think, why not, give it a try. Or maybe you're completely new to overhauls and you've just decided to go, why not, let's have a go at one of these. In the highlighted comments there will be links to all my videos about these particular overhauls. I've done various sections for each one, covering most of the updates and a bit more in-depth analysis that I cannot provide in this, well, actually hour-long video. This video was just to show you as a comparison to all the mods at once, just to see how they play together, and just a bit of a summary, I would like to say. In any case, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.